If you clicked because of the thumbnail, this is where we build it. My lumber rack is pretty empty. All I had is walnut and curly maple. Step one was breaking down the material that I'm going to use to start to a rough size. Some of my walnut has not been dimensioned yet, so it has some live edges. Though I do keep 2 live edges, I do need to get rid of some of them, which is obviously what I'm doing now. Just marking out the material so I know where to cut. The track saw was the tool I chose for the job. I then took off the remaining live edge, which is oddly enough a process I find satisfying. I had many a visits to the joiner and planer for this build. This is just one of them. I don't know what I was doing on my table saw last, but this is where I found the blade. I brought it back to 90 and then trimmed up a piece of maple that I'm going to put in between 2 pieces of a walnut for the top. After determining which pieces looked the best for the top, I marked a few spots that I'm going to put some dowels in. When I'm doing panel glue-ups, I regularly use dowels or biscuits to help with alignment. They don't help with strength. It's actually probably something that's not needed. The reason I used them for this particular project is because this is got the live edge on each side and I wanted it to help hold this thing together so I could get away with less clamping pressure. I didn't want to damage the live edge. With that panel glued up and put aside, I grabbed another piece of walnut and I'm going to start working on the legs. It almost feels like I took a couple steps backwards. I am back to where I started. Marking up my wood, cut it down to a rough size on the miter saw, the traditional straightening and flattening process on the joiner and the planer before landing back on the table saw. I milled this to 1 inch and I cut some strips out of it just a little over 2 inches. I want my legs to be square at 2 inches by 2 inches, so I laminated them together and then did another glue up. And don't you worry, I added cauls and a lot more clamps. Well, I got another glue up out of the way. I'm having fun. Man, I was laid up for like a month, so it feels good to be working. I should probably start milling up some of the other wood that I'm going to use for this project, but I'm going to hold off on that today. It's almost 6 o'clock, still early, plenty of time to work. But I think I'm going to clean and organize my shop up a little bit and put things away for the night. So remember I said I left the legs a little heavy? It's so I could clean them up after glue up. I used the joiner to clean up one edge and then moved over to the planer to bring them into 2 inches by 2 inches, and they are right on the money. I don't really know why, but I decided to work on the tabletop next. I took it out of clamps. There was a couple little checks in here, some cracks. I filled that with black CA glue. I also did some light sanding, but I won't bore you with that. I will, however, grab my last piece of walnut. Luckily, this thing's 5/4 because it has quite a bow in it. I then broke this all down into a lot of pieces that I'm going to end up using. I skipped, for your viewing pleasure, the milling process. I did it. I just didn't film it. Then I got to work on the table saw. I am having some fun out here today. Man, it feels good to be working again. I'm out of a brace. I'm still kind of limping, but my ankle's doing really good. I've got some pieces glued up, so I'm gonna take a coffee break, probably clean up a little bit, and then get back to work. I wonder if this is gonna be the last time I have to break down wood for this project. Probably not. So I went through the motions yet again. Joiner, planer, table saw, and this is the wood that's going to be used for the top of the lower shelf. I guess we're going to call it that, and it's going to match outside of the live edge, the top shelf. I think it's going to look kind of cool. I'm a little all over the place at this point, waiting for glue to dry, so I decided to cut the legs down to size, and I did a little bit more sanding. Still just winging it and planning things as I go. I got a little wild on the router table, and this is what I ended up with. You got it. a lot more dowel joinery, but I was at least able to do my first dry fit and get a little idea of what this is going to look like. Stacked and stickered, I called it a day. Well, this is a little embarrassing, but it's real life here in my shop. I'm about ready to cut some dados in my legs for the lower shelf unit, I guess we'll call it that. Took me 5 tries to dial in my dado stack, but it fits perfect now. One was a little small, one was a lot small, one was a little big. But I took a little time and got the fit that I wanted. That said, it took me longer to set up the dado stack than to cut the dados, but they fit great. There's no better reference than the panels I'm using, so I'm just making sure it looks right. This side might be a little tricky, but it'll be fine. So, more dowels. It does look kind of cool. It's just dry fit up right now. Thinking through some things that I didn't think through when I started making cuts. We'll get through it. I didn't want the legs to be boring and square, so I made a jig that I'm going to use a pattern bit on the router to give it a little shape and character. Before I went to the router table, I rough cut out a lot of the waste with the bandsaw. It is time for another dry fit up. Then I gotta mark some lines and start doing some finish work. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more to those legs, but I don't know yet. We're gonna do the dry fit up and just kind of see from there. After doing some fine tuning with the block plane, I got back on the router table and added a round over to most of the pieces here. Well, I thought I was done with this part of the leg, but after yet another glue up, I'm going to take it down just a little bit more here towards the bottom. When I cut it out with the router template, I left it a little large so I could bring it into what I thought would look the best by hand. Unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of time because what I do to this side, I have to do to all the other sides, all 3 of them, on 3 other legs. But we're gonna fine tune this thing until I'm happy with the way it looks. I modified the same jig I used earlier on the legs to give the feet a little style, and then used the bandsaw again to hog off a lot of the material. After this, I went back to the router table, used the pattern bit, and cleaned these legs up. They're starting to look pretty good. I did round over the hard edges, and then cleaned up the feet with a file. Well, my camera battery's gonna die and I don't wanna walk in and get one, so I'm going to get everything finished, sanded, card scraped, and then I'll do a dry fit and see if there's any modifications or tweaking that needs to be done before gluing this thing up. The weekend is here once again, so we're gonna get started. I hope to finish this weekend. The only thing I really have is to make 2 little drawers and then a little bit of finish work. The drawers are not going to be anything too fancy, but I do have some really nice walnut veneer that I'm going to make the bottom panel out of because why not? These veneer panels have been clamped up for 3 hours or so. Instructions say 45 minutes to 2 hours, so this should be more than enough. The veneer is really old, it's really brittle, so I'm hoping it's not too cracked. We're about to find out. Well, that doesn't look too bad. There's a lot of bleed through where the glue soaked through the veneer, but it should clean right up. Really quick, easy drawers that are going to look good. Essentially, it's going to get glued together here in just a minute with just butt joints. When the glue starts getting set up, when it dries a little bit, I'm going to come in and run some dowels through all the butt joints, which is going to be more than enough strength on a drawer, on just a little teeny piece like that over there. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that, and we're almost done. So I have the slides in the lower drawer. Now I'm going to get the top drawer. I'm going to get the top drawer slide on, attach the drawer faces, and then we'll start the finish work. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like when it's done with finish on it. Hopefully it looks pretty good. You never know. We're going to find out real soon though. I am just eyeballing this for square. The front and back are actually live edge, so it's not going to look too square anyways. The only thing I have left to do is actually break it back down. I'm going to pull all the hardware back off. Light sanding on some of the parts that have got a little dirty, and then I'm going to finish it. Before I finish it, my bench is a mess. I've got a big mess in here. I've got to clean my shop up. I'm going to blow all the dust out, and then I'll bring you back after I've got finish on it. I'm going to do Rubio Monocoat Pure.